The city was alive with neon lights and the endless hum of activity when Daniel Mercer decided to step into the world of vlogging. He wasn't the type people usually associated with an online presence, quiet, observant, and a little too skeptical of the way people displayed their lives for the internet. But he had a keen eye for detail, and perhaps more importantly, he had a voice that carried a certain conviction. What began as small, grainy videos filmed from his cluttered apartment soon grew into something far bigger than he ever imagined. Daniel's channel, The Vlogger's Verdict, started innocently. He would review everyday things, restaurants, street vendors, gadgets, even public services, with an honesty that people found refreshing. While other content creators polished their words to keep sponsors happy, Daniel never sugarcoated. If a burger was greasy and tasteless, he said it. If a phone broke within a week, he showed it on camera. People appreciated his bluntness in a digital world where nearly everything was dressed up with filters and fake smiles. His following grew, at first slowly, then all at once, snowballing into a loyal audience that trusted him more than the polished advertisements corporations pushed at them. The turning point came when Daniel decided to move beyond reviewing products and services. He began exposing dishonesty, corruption, and the unseen rot beneath the glossy exterior of the city. One video in particular changed everything. He had been invited by a friend to a supposedly top-rated luxury restaurant. Instead of glowing reviews, Daniel discovered rats in the kitchen, reused food, and a bribe offered to him to keep quiet. He filmed everything. The video went viral, pulling in millions of views in less than a week. The restaurant was shut down, its owners facing investigations. That was when Daniel realized he wasn't just a vlogger anymore. He was a judge in the court of public opinion. People came to him with stories, evidence, and whispers of wrongdoing. Some begged him to expose shady landlords. Others asked him to shine a light on corrupt officials. He became more than an entertainer. He became a voice that demanded accountability. But the more he exposed, the darker his path became. Powerful enemies began to circle. A developer he accused of illegal demolitions sent anonymous threats. A politician whose campaign funds he tracked to offshore accounts had Daniel followed home one night. His friends urged him to stop, to pull back before it was too late. Yet Daniel could not silence himself. Each upload, each verdict he delivered through his lens, only fueled his belief that what he was doing mattered more than his own safety. Late one night, Daniel sat at his desk, editing his most daring video yet. It was an exposé on a well-known figure, a businessman who had been hailed as a philanthropist but was secretly laundering money through charities. The evidence Daniel had gathered was damning: documents, recordings, insider testimonies. He knew once he hit publish, there would be no going back. His hands trembled as he hovered over the button. He glanced at the reflection in his darkened window, his own weary eyes staring back at him. For a moment, he wondered if he was playing executioner rather than truth-teller. But then he remembered every person who had written to him, every victim silenced by wealth and power, and he pressed upload. The video spread like wildfire. The businessman's empire crumbled in days. Investigations launched, lawsuits filed. Daniel's name became both celebrated and cursed. He was a hero to the people who believed in justice, a menace to those who thrived in secrecy. He stopped going out in public without disguise. Neighbors noticed unfamiliar cars parked near his apartment. Some nights, he swore he heard footsteps in the hallway outside his door. Still, he didn't stop. Each new video was another verdict, another nail in the coffin of corruption. His channel had become less about reviews and more about revelations, a digital gavel pounding against the guilty. But the weight of it all began to sink in. He had lost friends who didn't want to be associated with him anymore. His family begged him to disappear, to vanish before someone silenced him for good. His life had narrowed down to a camera, a computer, and the constant shadow of danger. One evening, as rain lashed against his windows, Daniel recorded what would be his final message. His voice was calm, steady, almost resigned. He spoke not to his enemies, but to his viewers, the strangers who had walked with him through every verdict. He told them the truth, that justice was never free, that every truth-teller paid a price, and that if he ever disappeared, They should remember the stories, not the storyteller. He signed off with a smile, small and tired, and the words he had ended every video with since the beginning. This is the verdict. The next morning, his channel uploaded an unfinished video automatically scheduled days before. The footage was raw, incomplete, but it contained enough to spark another storm. At the same time, Daniel's apartment was found empty. His belongings remained, his computer still warm, but there was no sign of him. Police reports called it a disappearance. His followers called it a silencing. In the years that followed, the vlogger's verdict became more than a channel, it became a movement. Others picked up their cameras, inspired by Daniel's courage. His old videos circulated endlessly, dissected, studied, praised. His face became a symbol, half forgotten by some, immortalized by others. And somewhere in the city, whispers spread of a man still watching from the shadows, recording, waiting for the right time to deliver his next verdict. The legend of Daniel Mercer only deepened as time stretched on. For weeks after his disappearance, people scoured his old videos for hidden clues. Every pause in his speech, every flicker of light behind him, every choice of words was dissected. Some claimed he had anticipated his own fate and planted a trail for others to follow. Others believed he was abducted the night he vanished, taken by one of the very figures he had exposed, silenced so thoroughly that only whispers of his name remained. A handful of his closest followers swore they received encrypted emails from him months after the police declared the case cold. The emails were short, cryptic, sometimes just a sentence or two, "They are watching," or "Keep the lens alive." Authorities dismissed them as hoaxes, the work of conspiracy theorists feeding on tragedy. But for those who had followed Daniel from his earliest uploads, the words carried his familiar weight, his sharp edge of conviction. Meanwhile, his channel refused to die. With every re-upload, every clip reshared across platforms, the vlogger's verdict seemed to take on a life of its own. Anonymous contributors began submitting videos under his name, carrying forward his mission of exposing lies and corruption. No one ever knew who was behind them, whether it was one person or many working together in Daniel's shadow, but the movement grew. The verdict became not just a title, but a phrase whispered in fear by those with secrets to hide. The city, too, changed in subtle ways. Journalists cited Daniel as their inspiration to dig deeper, to question harder. Young people, armed with nothing more than smartphones and courage, began documenting injustices in their neighborhoods. For every one video that went unnoticed, another would break through, catching fire and forcing accountability. His work had become a template, his absence a warning, and his presence, whether imagined or real, a ghost that haunted the powerful. But not everyone carried his name with reverence. Some circles painted him as a vigilante who had destabilized businesses, ruined reputations, and sowed paranoia. The families of the men he exposed, some guilty and others who had slipped through cracks of evidence, called him judge, jury, and executioner without trial. In backrooms and boardrooms, his face appeared on screens accompanied by hushed curses. They spoke of him as though he were a plague, a phantom who had tipped the delicate balance between secrecy and survival. Years later, an unmarked USB drive appeared in the mailbox of one of Daniel's earliest collaborators, a small-time journalist who had once shared leads with him. On it was a single video, grainy and poorly lit, showing Daniel himself, or at least someone who looked and sounded like him. He was older, gaunt, his eyes sharper, carrying a weary but unbroken fire. His words were brief, but devastating. "The verdict is never mine. It's yours. Don't forget that." Then the screen cut to black. The video was uploaded online within hours, debated for months, and archived in countless forms. Some argued it was a deepfake, an attempt to tarnish his legacy. Others believed it was Daniel's final message, a deliberate return from hiding. No one ever found the source of the video, nor the origin of the USB. In the end, Daniel Mercer remained both man and myth, an ordinary vlogger who became extraordinary through the courage of his voice, and perhaps a victim of that very courage. His story became a modern parable about truth, power, and the cost of standing between the two. And still, in quiet corners of the internet, where shadows linger longer than the light, his sign-off echoes like a hammer on a wooden gavel. This is the verdict. The myth of Daniel Mercer did not stay confined to online forums and whispered conversations. It bled into everyday life, into street murals and graffiti tags, into classrooms where teachers used his work as an example of modern resistance. His name became a banner for people who felt powerless. On subway walls, the words "The Verdict Lives" appeared in spray paint. In late-night cafes, university students debated his fate with the same intensity as if he were a figure from history books. But myths, like shadows, grow darker with time. The absence of answers about Daniel's fate opened the door to rumors and distortions. Some claimed he had been killed and buried in an unmarked grave outside the city, his killers smug in their belief they had erased him. Others swore he was alive, operating from the dark web, leaking files under a dozen pseudonyms. A smaller, more fanatical group even began to believe Daniel was never just a man at all, but an idea crafted by multiple people, an illusion designed to rally the masses against corruption. For the powerful, this uncertainty was more dangerous than the man himself. They could kill one vlogger, but how could they kill an idea? Whenever a scandal erupted, whenever an anonymous account posted evidence of fraud or abuse, the first question whispered in boardrooms was always the same. Is it him? Meanwhile, those closest to Daniel suffered quietly. His sister, who had once begged him to quit, stopped giving interviews after reporters hounded her for years. His oldest friend vanished into another city, tired of living under suspicion of helping him. Even the journalist who had received the mysterious USB drive never spoke publicly again, retreating from her career as if carrying a burden too heavy to explain. Yet the internet has a way of keeping ghosts alive. Each anniversary of his disappearance, Daniel's channel saw a surge of activity. Old subscribers returned, new viewers discovered his earliest videos, and hashtags in his name trended for days. People from different corners of the world shared their own verdicts, exposing corruption in their towns, workplaces, and governments. They called it continuing the trial. And then, one winter evening, another strange event reignited the fire. A livestream appeared on a forgotten account linked loosely to Daniel's network. The screen was black, only audio transmitting. A man's voice spoke, distorted but familiar in cadence. Truth is not safe. Truth is never safe. But it is the only verdict that matters. The stream ended after 3 minutes, but within that short time, thousands of viewers had tuned in. Screenshots spread instantly, dissected endlessly. Was it Daniel, alive and still fighting? Or just a clever imitation meant to manipulate his followers? No one could prove it either way. But that was the cruel genius of Daniel Mercer's legacy. The line between man and myth had blurred so completely that it no longer mattered. To those who believed, he had become something eternal. A judge without a bench, a gavel carried in every camera phone, a ghost haunting every secretive deal done in the dark. And though the world never saw his face again, his voice lingered in the collective conscience, sharp and unrelenting, like the edge of a blade. In quiet rooms, in crowded protests, in videos shot by trembling hands across the world, his words echoed still, low, certain, undeniable. This is the verdict.